Okay, so it's the start of the 6:30 turn. Well, I've just played the Allied movement phase, and things are getting exciting. There's these bits just indicate that these rows actually join onto here. So you can see the Prussians are getting quite close to the French lines, and the French had intended to kind of attack them as they were getting themselves into line, but then I changed my mind, and the French have been executing a withdrawal back to and past Plancenoy. So you can see they kind of, it's a guarded withdrawal. Some are withdrawing, some are guarding. They're setting up their guns along the streamline there, and then their intention is to set up around here amongst this obstructed terrain where you see you've got these hedgerows and whatnot. So they're having to extricate their guns which were placed here, and the Prussian cavalry are charging in. There's more coming around here. You've got Prussian skirmishers here. They've taken out an advance battery there of the French, so they're bringing up their batteries, but the 13th Division is deploying here, and there's the 15th Division there, and then we've got the 14th Division coming in here, and that's covering the First Corps there. But there's a bit of a mix-up between the sort of lines, so the deployment is going to happen a bit slower than the Prussians had hoped. They hoped to sort of charge straight in here, but due to leaders not being with their men and so forth, some confusion coming through all the terrain over there. But no matter that, you have a brave Dutch division. I don't know if you can tell, this is actually lower ground, like a peninsula of lower ground. Heading up here, so they're going up here hoping that the artillery won't be able to get them. So well, that's French cavalry. We had, where is it? Yes, and so here we had British cavalry coming round to try and help the the Dutch advance, and there was a quick exchange, but the French cavalry here retreated up to the hill, and then they met them on the slope, which resulted in rout, disorder and disorders on the French side, but essentially the French won that combat, so they sent them scurrying away. Meanwhile, we have units of division over here. It's not so important who it is really, is it? But they're moving over here to help hold this back. So you can see the French are hoping to take this line. They still have not taken Le Saint, and that is holding them up quite a lot. But you can see that there's Dutch units here, and there was a line here, mainly cavalry, and they've just been retreating back here and here. Some of them routed. They took a lot of losses in doing that because the French had pushed so far forward. But essentially what they've done is they've to reveal some artillery that moved up from Wellington's reserve and have deployed there. So although the French have now got an open field there, you can see there's a nasty line of artillery they're going to have to face if they move across that open ground. Then they've got a nice solid line here of the Hanoverians, I think that is. No, that's the King's German Legion in grey, and I think these ones are the Hanoverians. You can see odd units somewhat isolated, and unfortunately they're probably going to lose, because in extricating yourself, anybody who's adjacent to you will get fire on you as you try and move away, and they're going to create a lot of losses for Wellington, which could be telling. You can see he's got reserves up here which he could bring into play and sort of smash up along the side of the French coming up here, but he hasn't done that yet for two reasons. One is you can see the green hedgerows here. That is very difficult terrain to get through. It makes a really big difference on the target class. For example, if you're firing at, say, a line just let's take any sort of column really, but okay, this is the least number of units, but say middle amount of units and the middle class, you're going to do damage on these. So only on a 1 will you not do any damage, but as soon as you're getting to soft cover, so someone behind the hedge, you're only going to hit them on a 5 or a 6. So even when you're adjacent, and so that makes a big difference. The defenders are behind these lines. It's hard to dislodge them. So the French, that was the point. There's some hedges there. There were none here, so that was where the French were hoping to get through. And they brought up, you can see they brought up lots of artillery here, which is how they managed to dislodge from the hedgerow there. So Napoleon has just activated the Imperial Guard. Earlier I said that there was Imperial Guard here. That's not true. That's actually members of the First Corps. They were just held in reserve, and they're having to go off to defend the Corps' flank. But anyway, so now that they're activated, the only units Napoleon has not activated are these Guard cavalry. And they're actually off map, so I don't think they're going to get into the fight at this point, but you can see that they'll be handy for the pursuit, but it's going to, the nightfall will fall before we can get to that portion of the battle. So the guards have been mobilised, and either to go through here or through here, but so the other reason why Wellington hasn't activated these reserves yet is because of this. There's something that I'd overlooked. So this is how the morale was standing at the 6 p.m. adjustment. So almost parity, and you can see they've gone down rapidly, quicker than the French have been going down. But I had forgotten one thing, which is that for capture of this you gain morale, and for loss of that you gain morale, and the same for Le Haye-Sainte. So that's a swing of plus 15 and minus 15, a swing of 30 morale. So it brings us to this point. So now the French have not got almost double morale from the Anglo-Allied. Okay, they've activated more units, so this will exhaust quicker in those terms than the English. Taking that from excuse me. But because of the losses, you can see Anglo-Allied French losses. There's rough parity there. So the Anglo-Allied army is heading towards breakpoint, and that is a quite big swing. I thought it was going to be a closer call than that, but it looks like they are going to break. So this is even more critical than it was before, and in fact this could be the telling point, is that if the French, okay, they needed to delay the Prussian advance, because if you're more than 8 hexes away from an enemy, you can essentially move double movement on a road. So they needed to sort of be out there to delay them somewhat, but they really needed to defend behind a strong point, because they don't need any more losses. Now, okay, they will create losses to the Prussians, but the Prussian morale, okay, it's not great. But they really, if the Prussians do tit for tat losses on the French, it's going to tell for the French, because they with the losses incurred from the Anglo-Allied, they will break quicker. So that's the way it's going. Exciting stuff, and yes, it really is exciting stuff. For instance, this cannon was faced this way, and this unit was in square just before this last movement phase, because the French had actually moved. This unit was over here, so originally the French had actually moved some cavalry into here. Now that cavalry ended up scarpering. It got pummeled by the artillery there, but it meant that because these were then in square, these ones were able to move up quicker, not so worriedly, and Wellington quickly plugged the gap. The cannons battery has been quickly turned around, because units that were moving down here, we hoped that this was going to be cleared. They've moved out and around Le Haye-Sainte, hoping to, while the cavalry was distracting the batteries, but it's not to be. So they're going to get a blasting, but then, you know, these two are both behind hedgerows, and these are behind hedgerows. So the trouble for the French here is they don't have artillery. You can see they've got the artillery moving up, and that was delayed because of all the skirmishers in Le Haye-Sainte. So you can see that it is worth a morale point to hold that. Not and I don't know. It does feel right. It doesn't feel too gamey. The fact that if and when the French take that, that's going to be a big morale swing. These feel like kind of the strong points they are, and if they fall, you can imagine especially with this push, that the whole of this army, not knowing exactly what's happening anywhere, at least all this part of it, are going to be quite concerned at the onrushing horde. So this is where we stand. Exciting stuff. Can the French break through here and cause enough losses before the Dutch and the Prussians start chewing up their rear here?